Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, today we are looking at the history of airplanes.
Or the aeroplane, as I like to.
It's my aeroplane. Red Hot Chili Peppers?
Let's not do that again.
We're not going to sing?
No.
But I have a beautiful singing voice.
Nope. Let's move on.
Moving on. Quickly, how do planes work? Do you know?
So, I was always under the impression that it was magic.
It's close.
But you know, then you go to school for engineering. You do some simulation, you know, after you graduate college, and you realize there's this thing called lift. And it's just air moves faster below the wing than it does above the wing, and it basically creates a lift. And that's only one part of flight. You have thrust and some other stuff.
Sure.
But basically, it's lift.
I like that. So I stole this one sentence straight from the interwebs.
Ooh.
And it says, wings make lift by changing the direction and pressure of the air that crashes into them as the engines shoot them through the sky.
Wow.
I feel like that's as basic as it can get.
Yeah.
I had a better one, though.
Okay.
It sounds more complicated
More
this
technical.
way.
Let's hear the technical one.
Students of physics and aerodynamics are taught that airplanes fly as a result of Bernoulli's principle. Do you remember Bernoulli's?
I do remember Bernoulli. We were tight.
You were tight?
we were tight.
Okay. Bernoulli's principle says that if air speeds up, the pressure is lowered. Isn't that pretty much what you said?
Yep.
Thus, a wing generates lift because the air goes faster over the top, creating a region of low pressure, and thus lift.
I think I said the exact opposite.
Oh, you flipped that?
I said faster underneath. It's faster over top.
Well, that's why we're unprofessional, Luke, and I'm okay with that.
I am too. Another person of interest, since this is an engineering-ish podcast that everybody's tuning into, there was this cat named Ludwig Pradolf. I'm sure he was.
Prandtl.
Yeah, you got it? You have him?
1904?
1904. So this guy was a German professor, and this is crazy. Back in 1904, he described the concept of a boundary layer. And this is, excuse me, that layer that wraps around, for us in analysis and engineering, we talk about boundary layers all the time. It's that layer, this very fixed distance that wraps that foil profile of the wing. And they were talking about this, and it was like an 8-page paper describing this, and it's literally been, we use this today, this fixed boundary layer, when we set up and run analysis today, which is crazy. 1904.
Yeah, I made a special point of marking that one down as well, because boundary layers hold a special place in the hearts of CFD and FEA kind of folks.
Well, I think more for CFD,
It's more for CFD, but you can use a thin boundary layer mesh for FEA as well.
Okay.
But it is more for CFD, you're right. But that's pretty cool. Back in 1904, that's so long ago.
I would think, when I think in 1904, people were like using chisels and stone tablets.
I don't even know if they had that. I think they just smashed stones together. They learned from the apes to smash stuff with.
Really are. Yeah, we need to get back on track.
Okay,
here.
Let's go back earlier, right? 1904 can't be the first notes that we have.
No, it's not.
I go all the way back to the late 1800s. How about you?
I really started with 1903, which is the obvious one. So I'll let you go first.
Okay, let me hit two before we pass the buck.
Before we get to Kitty Hawk,
all right.
I'll let you go.
All right, so I have Otto Lilienthal.
Who inspired the Wright brothers, by the way.
He did inspire. He inspired me as well.
Otto inspired a lot of people.
Yeah. So he was an engineer by training.
By trade?
By his training. He wasn't, I don't think he went to school. I think he was trained as an engineer.
I gotcha.
And he built a glider to make him the first person to take off into the air and fly and land safely.
Yeah, the thing
back in the late 1800s.
It
was a glider. I know it's not a plane, but it's inspiration to where we're going.
It's very inspirational. If you think about, like, when everybody thinks of first flight was 1903 with the Wright brothers, people were flying way before that. There just wasn't a motor attached to the front of this thing pushing them. They were like just jumping off of cliffs and
mostly jumping off of cliffs and hoping for the best.
Exactly, and hang gliding.
Have you seen the people in like those squirrel suits that jump off of cliffs?
That's pretty impressive.
That is stupid. You should never do that. Anyone who does, you are not intelligent in my book.
See, I would definitely do that.
Well, that adds up.
You just proved your point, didn't you?
Yeah. So I do have a question before we move on. Did you wear the NASA shirt today because of flight, or did it just work out?
It was in the rotation.
Okay.
I'm not sure how you dress in the mornings,
What's
but
on
it's
top?
whatever's on top. I'll dig one shirt below, but never more than
Whatever's on
one.
top, that's appropriate for where I'm going.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So in 1901, the first successful flying model propelled by an internal combustion engine was created by Samuel Langley. So I thought that was interesting. So it was actually kind of big. It's not like it was like an RC plane or something. I think this had like a 15-foot wingspan.
Yeah, I think they had to support their weight. They had to get that surface area.
So I thought that was pretty interesting. That now we're not just glidering. We had an engine attached as well. Just no people attached.
No people.
Right. And so then on December 17th, 1903.
Yes.
What happened, Luke? What happened?
So Orville Redenbacher. No, Orville Wright. That's the popcorn guy. Sorry, popcorn. I said that wrong. Orville, the Wilbur and Orville Wright in Dayton, Ohio. This is where these guys grew up. They flew a really unimpressive,
I feel like you
12
phrased
seconds.
this poorly.
Well, no, I don't know if I phrased it poorly, but basically it was 12 seconds, 120 feet.
Yeah.
I can hit a golf ball at least that far.
I would hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 120 feet.
You could putt it that far.
Yeah, that's 120 feet. I can
really almost jump that far. I'm a good long jumper.
I feel like I'm just going to ignore you. Okay. I feel like that is I get that it's a big deal, but it's just so small. And actually, they had, on that same day, subsequent test flights that actually went a lot longer. So even though the first one's short, that same day, they did longer test flights.
Their best test flight was 59 seconds, covering 852 feet.
That's pretty good.
Now, that seems a little bit better.
It seems way better. They should just list that as the first flight.
Yeah,
why,
I agree.
Why 120
I saw that 120
feet?
and just kind of skipped over it because it's so paltry.
But the cool thing is, I love the word poultry, by the way.
Thank you.
Did you say poultry?
Poultry. You said poultry. You're talking chickens because we're talking flight. I get it.
See what I did there? But the cool thing is, these guys grew up in Dayton, Ohio. Neither one of them, from what I could gather, was like an engineer by trade. These guys were making bicycles.
They were bicycle people.
They were tinkerers. So these guys, we joke every now and then about like the OG, makers. But these guys were the original
What's
makers.
An OG?
The original, original.
Oh.
You never heard that before?
No. When did they use that back in the 20s when you were growing up?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But these guys were the original makers. They were making bicycles and fixing stuff, and then they just started making planes. It was the original makers, I think. These guys were them. They probably wore white belts and had beards.
And had the mustaches that have wax in them.
I'm sure they did.
Oh, yeah. They're pretty cool. So you said they grew up in Dayton, right?
Yep.
And the flight was actually in Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina, right outside of Kitty Hawk.
Okay.
Right? So have you ever been there?
No.
Big sandy dunes and whatnot?
You were there?
Yeah.
Was it cool?
No.
Was it memorialized in any way?
Barely, but yeah, it wasn't real impressive. The dunes are really cool.
My guess is they wanted that just in case they crash. That way they'd at least something semi-soft.
The sand or whatever.
I
think they have big hills there. I know they have big hills there, and it's tough to walk up. But other than that, I thought that's cool. Do you have any OBX stickers, like the Outer Banks?
No, I don't go there.
I don't like those stickers.
I don't do that. I have a couple places I visited, but nothing more than that.
The only stickers I support are unprofessional engineering stickers.
I knew you were going to say that.
I'm good like that. Okay.
You are.
So let's move on, huh?
Yes, please.
What do you have next on your timeline? I go to 1914.
So I have an interesting one, and this is the first time an aircraft has taken off from a ship and landed on a ship.
I saw that one and I skipped it, so go ahead.
I didn't skip it because I know you love military history and military stuff.
And you just want to give a shout out to our aircraft carrier episode, don't you?
I do want to give a shout out to our aircraft carrier episode. So in 1910, Eugene Eli actually took off from a carrier. He was in Hampton Roads, Virginia, landed on shore, and then in 1911, so a year later, I don't have the exact dates, he actually took off and landed on a ship. So it took them a year to kind of figure out the technology and what would be needed. So I guess taking off from the ship was easier, but landing and catching the ship and the actual apparatus that catches the ship, that's actually that style and that design is still the type
Is
of
it
design
really?
and style they use today. It's basically it's just a big giant cable where they just hook the plane and.
Can you imagine being the first person to try and do that?
To trust that cable, like I'm either gonna be the awesomest guy tonight at the bar telling stories about work, or I'm dead.
You're talking to someone who doesn't trust roller coasters, and this guy's like, well...
You don't do roller coasters?
No, not at all.
Okay.
This guy's like, well, that cable looks like it'll probably catch me.
And how big could that cable have been back then? What, like an inch in diameter, 2 inches?
I don't know, but it's not making me feel good, that's for sure. Wow. Okay, so 1914, anything before that?
I got nothing before that.
All right, good. We got Lawrence Sperry demonstrates an automatic gyroscope, which is pretty cool.
That's not an airplane, it's a helicopter, right?
So this leads to the first automated pilot 2 years later.
Okay.
So that's neat, because now the pilots can just get drunk and harass... Well, we won't go there. Anyways, nice. They can... I don't know, not concentrate the whole time.
Okay, I thought you meant helicopter. You said, okay.
There is a helicopter date in here somewhere, but I skipped that as well because it's not an airplane. So I thought the gyroscope's cool. That's pretty amazing technology. I don't know much about them. But
I don't either.
There was a video game called Gyroscope back in the day. No, that was Gyromite. Never mind.
Yes.
Moving on, 1917. Do you have this one?
I don't.
Hugo Junkers. That was just a great name, right?
It's the best name ever.
Another German, and so it's probably not pronounced Junkers, but that's how it's spelled. He introduces an all-metal airplane made mostly of lightweight aluminum alloy called Durlumin.
Wow.
Yeah, Durlumin.
You shouldn't speak sometimes.
Wow, that was hurtful.
Just saying.
My mom says that a lot.
Did you notice that a lot of this stuff was Germans?
Yeah.
And now most of it seemed to be war inspired, like prepping for the war and pre-war and during and post-war.
Both wars, yes.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of their engineering revolved around making sure they attempted to dominate the world.
Sure, but that's a fair assessment.
Right.
But if you look at our World War II weaponry episode, another episode drop, we should really count these.
We should.
We talked about like the rockets and the rocket engines and the different things like that, and the Germans were way ahead of their time with those designs. And the same thing goes with the rest of flight.
Yeah.
I guess they go hand in hand.
Do you have anything before 1927?
I do. 1919.
Wow, you got a ton of stuff.
The U.S. Navy makes the first airplane crossing the North Atlantic. I think that's a pretty big deal because that's a long flight. I still don't like doing that. That same year, they started doing passenger services across the English Channel because it turns out they didn't have the channel back then. And they couldn't
What's the channel? Oh, that's the thing that goes under the water.
Yeah.
I got
See, the channel holds a special place for me because it's like the missing episode. It's the lost episode of Unprofessional Engineering.
Did you do the channel?
Dave and I did the channel.
Okay.
And 4 minutes in, our mic cut out. And so we just talked for another half hour.
Oh, and you didn't know this until you were done.
And decided that we couldn't recapture the magic with that episode.
Maybe you and I should recapture it. I feel like I would love doing the channel.
I did a blog post on it, but I'm sure I still have my notes, so I'd be happy to take an easy out on that one.
Okay.
So now, what did you say, 27?
Yeah, 27.
We should all know where he's going with this one,
so this is an easy one. So this is Charles Lindbergh crossing the Atlantic non-stop. He traveled 3,600 miles from New York to Paris. And it was pretty impressive. This is what, May 21st? Yeah, May 21st.
Yep.
So pretty impressive. I mean, the fact that this was solo.
Solo?
He was by himself.
Oh, solo. I thought you meant it's so low.
No.
Like he was flying so low. I'm like, what's that have to do with anything?
Really getting,
it's getting so low.
This isn't going to be one of our better episodes.
Wow, that's hurtful. I'm really enjoying myself. This is a lot of good history.
But 3,600 miles, did you have the time listed for some reason?
No,
I did
not
not
say
write the
how
time
long
down.
it took.
But that's got to be a while. I mean, who's flying that plane when he has to use the bathroom? And
he probably has like
hungry?
a Gatorade bottle. That's what I always do.
Okay.
Long road trips.
I gotcha.
I'm a thinker. But yeah, that's very impressive. Did you say the name of his plane?
I did not. I don't know.
Do you know what it is?
No, I.
Come on.
No, the St. Louis Arch thingy.
The Spirit of St. Louis.
The Spirit of St. Louis.
Yes. the St. Louis Arch thingy was what he first named his plane, but they said that doesn't have a good ring to it, so let's change it to the Spirit of St. Louis.
Guessing he's from St. Louis, right?
I can only assume as much.
Okay.
All right, so after all this glory, let's take a break for a word from our sponsor.
We have a sponsor this week,
So
James?
I feel like it could be Delta, it could be
Boeing.
It could be Boeing. That would be great.
Airbus.
All these things were possible, but we decided that we would just not have a sponsor.
We don't like having the man tell us what to do.
Exactly. Once you get a sponsor, they're like, you can't say stuff like the pilot's getting drunk. They get all angry.
They do.
So we're going to not have one for a while.
We got some shout-outs?
We do have. We have 2 shout-outs from this
shout-outs.
week. I love these ones too. Benjamin W. actually has been doing some flying lately is how he started it off, which is funny because it times up perfectly.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, when I read it initially, I was like, the dude's learning to fly planes? That's awesome.
Yeah?
But now I'm thinking maybe he's just been flying on a plane, like traveling.
Oh, you read it.
I'm not sure which way.
I got you.
So, Ben, I will be emailing you to get your information for sending you some stickers and clearing up if you are actually a pilot in training or not.
or if you're
Or you're just sitting on a plane.
Delta Sky Club.
And so then there's right. Then there's David S., who recently discovered our podcast and really enjoys it, especially the History of CAD episode.
Nice.
Nice, right? He's a civil engineer, and he's either used AutoCAD or MicroStation for horizontal construction projects. He's surprised MicroStation isn't used so much in the mechanical manufacturing space, as Bentley has a big stronghold on civil.
So a little segue here. I know we're doing planes,
No,
but have you
that's
ever used MicroStation?
I saw MicroStation when I went and interviewed at Northrop, but
Okay.
I never used it.
So I'm a firm believer that whatever you use first is what you like most.
I would
'Cause
agree with that.
I taught at a school for a number of years, and we would teach AutoCAD and MicroStation. And what we would do is every semester we would flip-flop which one we taught first to the incoming group. And it was 100% of the time. If you learned AutoCAD first, AutoCAD was the best, MicroStation was horrible. If you learned MicroStation first, MicroStation was the best, and AutoCAD was horrible. So I'm fairly certain that some of these programs, they don't get their fair shake just because of when someone learns to use a product.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was a big SolidWorks fan because of learning that in college and using that. So I think it's the same dig.
I love
deal.
Inventor because it was the first 3D CAD package I used, and I try using Fusion, and you just use a piece of software so much one way, it's kind of tough to change. But once you get into it,
Once you get the workflow,
now
it's
I
okay.
like both.
Yeah, exactly. I had one more shout out that I wanted to give.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, that's cool. I like the
Good segue.
little insight there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last one, I don't know the person's name. They only had a iTunes review account.
Okay.
And I wanted to give him a shout out because it is the worst review that we've gotten on iTunes. It is a 3-star review.
That's 3 stars.
Which is still pretty good, right?
I'll take
It's better
3
than
stars.
2.
I'll take 3.
And they made it clear that they did not like all of the coffee cup sounds, and they were very angry about your repetitive use of the phrase, "You're the worst."
So do I always say that you're the
do.
worst?
So I think they actually just listened to one episode.
Because I don't think I do that all the time.
I think it was our top inventions episode, and when I wasn't giving ground on what the top inventions were, you were like,
You're right.
"You're the worst. You're the worst."
I probably
So
did
for
do
that listener, could you give me one more? You're the worst.
James, you're the worst.
Thank you. So there's that. Anyone who wants to go give us a review, hop on iTunes or whatever you use and tell them that we are not the worst. 5 stars is appreciated.
We're the best, in fact.
I would think so. My mom tells me so. And if you subscribe to our podcast, email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com, and we will send you some amazing, not the worst, unprofessional engineering stickers.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm actually sending some out today.
Nice.
All right, let's move on.
Let's move on.
1932, I think. I don't have my list, but I think that's the next date.
I got one.
Oh,
this one is
between there?
interesting to me. I do. So back in 1928, Edwin Link introduced the Link trainer. How cool would it be to invent something and call it the Herzing trainer? Like to use your name.
They would probably do that for abs because of my sweet six-pack.
Oh my goodness. So this guy created a flight simulator.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, that the U.S. pilots used during World War II. Wow, I can't talk today.
You can tell it's our first
I got a
day
webinar
back.
later today too. I got to get this all out now. But yeah, so he basically invented a simulator, and this is 1928, and and the fact that you could have a simulator that could actually do all the different things in the
That
cockpit,
provided any real value.
Sorry about that table hit.
Yeah.
That you could actually feel the simulator moving, all that sort of stuff. So that was pretty cool. I thought way back in 1928, a simulator.
Right.
How cool is that?
It's very cool.
I love it.
I don't like have you done VR flight simulators?
It makes me sick.
Yeah, me too.
It's weird.
Not good. Not a good
I
feeling.
think because I can't see my hands,
That could
like
be.
it's just your eyes. I think that's the problem with VR that I have.
All right. So now what? 32?
Yeah, 32 works for me.
32. Amelia Earhart says, "You know what, boys? I can fly as well. By myself across the Atlantic." That's how she talked. I don't know if you know that.
That is how she talked?
Yeah.
Okay.
So she did that, and then she was like, "You know what? I can do the Pacific too." And I don't think that turned out as well.
I don't think it did.
Didn't she like disappear into the Bermuda Triangle or something?
I forget.
Or somewhere.
No, so supposedly, she crashed, and they found remnants
got
of the
that.
plane. And just recently, there was a show where they think she may have actually been rescued somewhere in the Pacific, and because there's photographs after she crashed of her and her navigator that they think she was actually captured, I think, by Japan, and was actually held captive for some period of time. It was on just the other day. It was like a week or two ago. There's a whole show all about did she actually die in the crash? Or,
Wow. I've never heard this.
You should check it out.
I will not check it out, but I
was pretty
appreciate
interesting.
it. It sounds pretty interesting.
Because she was talk about way ahead of her time, and
Right,
and not
very
just
progressive.
and not just for women, just in general ahead of her time.
Yeah.
Specifically for women, but
Specifically, even.
Did I say? Did
No,
I say
but I thought since
specifically?
that's where she was flying then.
I see what you did there.
Okay. So didn't Charles Lindbergh lose his baby too? Wasn't it stolen, like kidnapped?
Yeah,
Was that him?
He had some weird stuff happen
See,
too.
it just feels to me like flying solo does not pay.
Yeah, there's always weird stuff that happens.
Yeah. Okay, well anyways, let's see here. I have 1933, the first modern commercial airliner by Boeing, the 247.
The 247?
That's what I had.
Okay, I didn't catch that, but all right.
Yeah, that must have been pretty small. I have 35, the first practical radar by Sir Robert Watson. A Brit, finally,
Yeah.
not a German for once.
Now, was this he did the radar that did the ground detecting of the plane radar, or was it the plane-to-plane radar? Does it say which one it is?
Thanks for that, Luke.
sorry to put you on the spot. Okay.
If I were a betting man, I would say ground to
Okay,
plane.
we'll move on.
Okay, where are you at next?
37,
That's
I think,
where I
is
was going
key.
next, too.
I
Go
think,
for it.
Yeah, so 1937, the first first
true.
jet engine was designed, and it was. I'll let you pronounce these names because you're the one who has the vernacular to be able to do this.
So it was designed in parallel by both the Brits and the Germans. So Frank Whittle did it, which was pretty good, and I got that one down. And then Hans von Ohan
You nailed it.
was I
Nailed
think
it.
For how I usually name things, that was much more confident,
You
if nothing
nailed it.
else. Yeah, so both of them designing jet engines, I suppose, for the same reason, right?
Yeah.
For the war.
Yeah.
So that's kind of neat. And so then I don't have a lot of World War II stuff in there since we did a whole episode about it.
Mm-hmm.
But really, like you said, World War II drove innovation, really spurred on airplanes and flight in general.
Gotcha.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add for World War II?
I did not. I mean, there was a lot of stuff. So the Germans developed radio wave for navigation, so they could be in the plane and navigate even at night. So previously you had to do a lot of navigation by the stars, or it had to be daylight. Nighttime flying was dangerous. So radio wave
dangerous.
navigation. I thought that was interesting. And the first practical jet fighter was actually during World War II, and this was the ME-262. Guess how fast this thing flew? Don't look at your notes.
How fast did it
How
fly?
fast
in
did it fly?
kilometers or
Miles per hour.
520.
540.
Ooh, that's good, and I don't even have it in my notes.
That is
well
that's
done, me.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Boeing also made some enormous, the B-17, which they called the Flying Fortress.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and then they did the B-29, which was the super fortress. So these are
Which one was flying over Japan? Do you know?
I do not know.
Okay, sorry about that.
It's all right. I threw you
We're
under the
even.
bus. You threw me. I got you. Thank you very much.
I assume it was one of the bombers, right?
Yeah.
I thought it, if I remember correctly from my half hour of history class, it was kind of surrounded by a bunch of other planes, and they were all
protecting
kind of
it.
the protection just to get that where it needed to go.
I'm really excited about the next one if we have the same one.
1950s?
I got 47.
Oh yeah, I have that
How
one
could you
too.
skip
Go
that?
ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So in 1947, Charles Chuck Yeager actually broke the sound barrier in the Bell X-1.
That's really a big deal. That's amazing.
That's a huge deal because if you think about, breaking that sound barrier, it happens all the time now. Not you and I.
I'm pretty fast.
You are light on your feet.
Right?
So I thought that was pretty significant. And
well, go ahead.
I was going to say, so this was in California, too.
It was,
so I would think that they do this over the ocean or something like that. This was...
Maybe over the deserts.
Yeah, but what if you crash, there's no chance of living. Where the water...
so you're going...
The water, there's
You're going the speed of sound, and you think you're going to survive when you hit water? I think water's actually harder when you hit it then.
I'm sure you're onto something.
I think it's like
there.
concrete. I don't know. Anyways, what I thought was interesting is after he landed, he celebrated with a drink, and that's where we get Jägermeister. None of that is true. That is a big lie. But I bet I had somebody believing it at some point. It's not even spelled the same way. All right.
Oh, don't do that. I had a whole mouthful of coffee that almost came out on the microphone. Excuse me.
So now I have the 1950s.
Wow,
moving
that
on
was
from
rough.
Jägermeister.
Yes.
The B-52 bomber shows up.
Yep.
Intercontinental range for travel and the capacity of 500,000 pounds. That's huge.
500,000 pounds.
That's like 3 of you.
Well,
Give or take.
give or take. Give or take.
We're sassy today.
We are sassy today.
Yeah.
So interesting. Did you happen to watch the movie Unbroken or Unbreakable? It was the Louis Zamperini story, the guy that was
I've never heard of any of this.
So basically, he was in, I think it was a B-52 bomber, got shot down and lived in a concentration camp, and he was an Olympian before he was in the military.
Okay, yeah.
It was a great story. Angelina Jolie directed it, but great book. Good movie. You should check it out.
I will.
And they talk about how these B-52 bombers, I think it was a B-52 he was in, just how big they were and how unprotected, basically, everybody in the plane was.
Okay, let's move on.
Move on.
What do you have?
So I got to go. I have 76.
I got 69 before that. Boeing
Okay.
747 is introduced. That's forever ago, and it's still
Yeah.
That's the main plane.
The
right?
crazy thing is, the planes that we fly on every day, these things are like 40
Yeah,
years
they're not
old.
new.
They got more,
Makes you feel good.
Like your Chevy, you're going to probably get rid of that when it hits 100,000 miles, right? Think about the miles on a plane. They got hundreds of thousands of miles on a
More than
plane,
that,
which
yeah.
is crazy, and they're still running. Makes me nervous every time I fly now.
Yeah. 76?
So I got 76. So the Concorde.
Mm-hmm.
So this is supersonic flight. You could get from New York to London in 3.5 hours,
Amazing.
which is crazy. The drawback was when you crash, everybody dies. I think that happens in most airplane crashes,
Yeah,
but
for sure here.
for sure here.
2x the speed of sound.
Yeah, twice the speed of sound.
That would be
you're
2x,
right.
yes.
That would be 2x. So there was an incident in July of 2006. I remember when this happened.
Yeah,
do you
me
remember
too,
it?
yeah.
You were probably still in diapers. But,
I was.
in 2000, it killed everybody on board. They grounded them for a year. They resumed for a couple years.
Oh, I don't
and
remember that.
I think
lied.
they only flew for another year or two, so they don't do the Concorde anymore.
I don't remember that actually, the crash, but I do remember them decommissioning it.
Yeah, it was crazy, but it was really expensive to fly the Concorde, like the most expensive flight you've ever had.
That's
Like
what I
the
thought
cost
the main
of like the
problem
cost of a
was how
vehicle kind of
expensive.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's burn through the last couple of these.
Okay.
How about that? 86, a couple brothers circumnavigate the globe in 9 days nonstop. A lot of Gatorade
I missed
bottles.
that one.
95.
Yeah, a lot of Gatorade bottles.
Boeing creates the twin engine 777.
Guess what this
Wow.
was? Guess what it was?
It was the first ever aircraft produced using CAD and engineering.
You so stole my
CAD.
thunder.
I know.
Now
Amazing.
that is crazy that 1995.
How are we flying on things that didn't use CAD?
What did they use, a T-square?
I assume they were back with those stones, smashing stones together.
To think that, like, in 95, I mean, I was running AutoCAD in 95.
How tightly designed airplanes are for them not to have been using CAD blows my mind.
So there was a note that I read somewhere, and I don't know if this is legit because it's all off the interwebs.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever they put this thing together, it actually aligned within 0.03 millimeters whenever they went to start. So they were able, using a CAD model, to get this down to less than a millimeter of, fit up and clearance.
I am so bad at what I do.
So just think about that plane that you and I fly on every day is not the 777, it's the 747. It was a paper drawing that was designed on, and we're sitting in those seats flying every
40 years later.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That's great. What else do you have?
I got nothing. I'm done.
The B-2 bomber shows up in the 90s, undetectable by radar, and then stealth planes start showing up.
Why is it undetectable?
Cool.
It's
I
the
think
material
it's the curvature and the material.
It's the curvature and materials because it wasn't using typical metals, I think.
Right. And then 2006, the Airbus 350. Needed to give Airbus some love.
We got to.
The double-decker plane with seating for 555 people.
Wow.
Which is kind of silly. So the last thing I wanted to talk about in the last couple minutes here is maybe the future of flight.
So I did no research on the future, James, so I'm going to just let you rant.
You can just add some color commentary in
some
here.
Banter.
Yeah, some banter.
Okay.
It's expected that 7x, an increase of 7 times
that would be 7x.
By the year 2050. 7x. Now,
see,
does that mean we see flying cars coming? And that's why we're thinking it's 7 times the air traffic?
No, I think what's going to happen is the cost of flights are going to come down so much that, like, where you and I, whenever our boss makes us go to Novi, Michigan.
I think we're just going to take our flying cars.
We might take our flying cars, but we could just fly because it's going to be so cheap rather than our boss making us drive now.
Yeah, that's pretty true.
He does. He's like, don't spend that $140, drive to Novi.
Right. All right, so anyways, the crucial next step, I had to add this, is going green, or so says our good friend, CEO of Tesla, Elon Musk.
It's Elon.
E-L-O-N.
There's no G in there. I always
G.
call him Elon.
You can call him that.
Elon.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyways, once batteries are capable of producing more, this might be what happens.
Yeah, they said right now there are battery-powered planes, but these are all like experimental, personal air. None of these are used in any commercial capacity for any distances.
Correct. Okay, once we have electric aircrafts, the next step will be to integrate a gimbaled propulsion system, so you can thrust in any direction. That's kind of cool. So right now,
that is very cool.
We need to really do an episode on how airplanes work. Now that we've covered the history, because that might not make a lot of sense to people. That we pretty much only go in one direction.
I don't know why
push in one direction.
I thought of it, but I thought of the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the elevator at the end.
Yes, it can go anywhere.
So basically, what Elon is saying is we need to create the elevator from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory that you hit a button and it can go up, down, sideways, backwards, and forwards.
Yeah. And I think with that, we probably should just call it a day. Yeah. I mean, we're going to end on that gem.
Yeah, that's
also,
a gem.
That was on last night.
That's a gem. It was?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep, after Harry Potter, it was on.
The old one? The original?
The original,
good. Yeah,
right.
the Johnny Depp one, yeah.
You know, that guy spends like $30,000 a month on wine. I heard that. Good for him. Wow, that's a lot of wine.
I think that's bad.
Bad for him.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, hopefully you learned something here with the history of airplanes. I had a lot of fun today.
I did. This was good.
If you guys want to subscribe, tell us something we missed, or just, say, good job, guys, feel free to email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. Until next time.
See ya.